Well, hello,
Maybe we should do
Miss.
an episode where like we just sit here and see how long it takes for one of us to say
Nah, you'll
something.
get all pissy about it. Little Miss gonna take my glasses off when we hit record, but won't.
Mm-hmm. I forgot. Sorry. Do you think I like manifest the nose running?
I don't know. I just think that's kind of one of your OCD traits.
Really?
Yeah, you're overly sensitive to your nose.
Well, I am. Like some people can deal with like a little wetness. Mm-mm.
Before
But
we dig
literally, once
too
I hit record, like literally started to drip.
before
Sorry.
we dig too deep into your nose, welcome to the Off the Cuff podcast. I'm Justin DeWeese. That's my beautiful runny-nosed wife, Ashley DeWeese, and we're here to entertain you with random thoughts and the babbling of idiots.
Hey, I do not resemble that statement.
Anyway, I was sitting here and I was like, gosh, dog, it's hot in here. And I thought maybe there's some cookie bacon going on. So I thought maybe the oven had warmed up the room. But then I looked over at the
Not by me.
thermostat.
No one fall out of their seat. Like I'm not the one baking.
Right. But then I looked over at the thermostat and lo and behold, it says 74.
Because it's flipping cold outside and inside.
Yeah, but when it said at 72, you're the only one that's going, it's cold in here.
Not the only one. And even if I was, this is my home. This is my place of solace. I really don't even know what solace means. I just think
Yeah,
it sounded like the right word.
I was waiting to see if you would expand on that or if your mouth was writing checks that your brain couldn't cash.
You know how that goes sometimes? Like, you know the word, you know it's the right word to use, but maybe you've just forgotten what it actually means. Because, like, if you
No.
tell me what solace means right now, I will 100% be like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
Well, yeah, if I, you know what? I'm not even justifying this with conversation.
No, but seriously, what does solace mean? I can Google it.
The Webster's Dictionary definition solace, comfort
Solace.
or consolation in a time of distress or sadness.
Is your home not supposed to be that for you?
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's in
obviously
a
not only
time
that, but
of distress or sadness.
well, sometimes I'm in distress and sadness and I am at home.
Yeah, we see you. That's why we got you that hoodie.
Wow. This hoodie is pretty amazing. The problem is I'm just gonna want to wear it all the time and I'm not going to do that.
Right. Well, we'll just have to get you some more so you can rotate them.
Yes, thank you. All the colors.
No, that is a special heavyweight hoodie that I bought my love for her birthday, not Valentine's Day, for her
For my
birthday.
birthday.
And it's supposed to be calming and soothing and help with anxiety because it's like you're wearing a hug is what
Right.
the website says, I think.
Yeah, and first of all, let me just say that friends, it does work. I mean, I suppose you have to have the right man, but it does work to send something to your mate that you're like, oh my gosh, check this out. This is so amazing. And if you have the right guy, he will make note of that and he will take that into consideration when it's time to purchase gifts for you.
See, I think where females run into trouble is you can't you can't spam the messages, right? If
Like
you were
send you
sending
a
me
ton of things all
right,
the
if you were
time.
sending me things every single day,
Yeah,
then it's a crapshoot. Like which one of those things does she really want?
right.
Or is she just like, look at this thing, right? But if you send me very few things, so typically I know if you send me something, that's something that has truly tickled your heartstrings.
Well, I've learned over the years because I know this is like not the in-depth part of the convo about the help of the city, but no, when I was growing up, my parents, God love them, when we would go shopping, I literally all I had to do was like touch something and be like, "Oh, that's nice." or that's cute. And the assumption would be that I wanted it. And there's some
Right.
things that you can like recognize, like, oh, that's cute or whatever, but it might not be something that, maybe I'm saying like it's cute for someone else, but not like for
Sure.
me. Maybe I already have one, a multitude of things. And so I think in my adult life, I've just become very cautious about vocalizing things like that in front of certain people because I sometimes don't want the things. So, anyways, that's partly why I just don't send you a ton of things.
No, I
Which
appreciate that.
turns out to be helpful. But yeah, no, I saw someone wearing, I mean, and obviously it can make you look very, very big and whatever. But I saw someone post about this and checked into it. And while I am not someone who is a fan of trying to like label yourself, because it's a slippery slope when you start
Sure.
saying, like, I have anxiety or I am this, like, you are not the thing. It's
Correct.
important for us to tap out. But I have not been diagnosed with anxiety, but I do get anxious. I do get anxious. I do have feelings of, just uncalmness at times. And so we have worked over the years just to try to find different things that help with that.
Right. Well, and so I think this is an important point, right? Because we have looked for things like that, right? I think where a lot of people hose themselves is that's where they stop,
What do you
right?
mean?
So like we have acquired these tools and accessories and whatnot over the years, right? To try to help with the situation. Weighted blankets, big old hoodies, blah, blah, blah. But you are also working to grow yourself, to give yourself like internal tactics
Yeah.
and learning about yourself and what you can do to mitigate these situations on your own, irregardless of the tools and accessories.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people, and not just when it comes to anxiety and hoodies, but a lot of people just try to find the tool or the accessory that will help with the thing versus, hey, cool, that's a supplement. But what really needs to happen is this work on and within myself.
Yeah. Like those are such great points. And it does
Yeah, I
apply for.
know.
Allow me to compliment you without you like coming back at me like that.
I
Okay.
do every
Okay.
once in a while, but not on Thursdays.
No, it is. It's so powerful and important to talk about because we live in a world, and I see glimpses of hope here and there of going in another direction. But we do live in a world that they just want the fix,
Right.
right? Like they want the thing that's gonna plug the hole. And
Heyo.
and while that may work temporarily, maybe it works forever. There's downsides to that, right? And obviously the first one, if it's just temporary, then it is a downside to that because all you're doing is kicking the can down the road. If you find a medication, if you find a a hoodie, if you find like something that's only temporary is putting a band-aid on something that
Right.
eventually it's still that band-aid is going to come off and the problem's still going to be there, right?
Right.
So I get sometimes we want that temporary, we just want it fixed. But at the end of the day, like you said, if you're just utilizing things that only put a band-aid on the issue, it's just going to be reoccurring in your life, right? And
Right.
oftentimes it is growing in intensity and complexity while you've got that band-aid on. The other part is maybe you find something that addresses it long term. But what I've come to find, and I'm trying to think in my head of, well, I can use the example of alcohol, right? Like you may find that when you drink alcohol, you you feel like you're less self-conscious or less anxious in public situations. For me, that was one thing that like I used alcohol for, was to make myself feel
Right.
better around people. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like when I'm drinking alcohol, it makes me feel all right about being in a group of people. So I'm just going to keep drinking alcohol for the rest of my life whenever I'm going to be in a group of people. So to me, that could feel like I have found something that fixes the issue I'm having,
Right.
but for good. But at the same time, it's causing detriment to my mind, my body, my life in so many other ways. Also, then you become dependent on that fix. You become
Right.
dependent on that tool. And, to move off the alcohol, even like, let's go back to this hoodie, right? We're trying this out, seeing if this is like helpful to me, but without doing or continuing to do that internal work on myself to figure things out, um, I become dependent on this. So
Right.
what happens when I am out and about? Let's say we go on a trip, right? We go on a trip, vacation, and all of a sudden we are midair and I'm like, "Oh shit, I don't have my hoodie." I become to believe that the only way I can
Right.
function is to have this tool, to have this thing. And so if I don't have it, if I don't have the tool, then the belief is, well, I can't function because I don't have that thing. And that's a very dangerous place to be in.
Right. Well, and it wouldn't even have to be like in midair, right? But like come summertime, you're not going to want to wear that hoodie.
Right.
So then what are
Right.
you
So
going to
what
do?
then?
And that's like every day,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and maybe to take it down a few notches, because I encounter this with the women that I work with inside of my Crown Club or Crown program in my Queens Club community, is that I talk a lot about having that daily routine that helps you be mentally strong, physically strong, and that sets you in a position to feel in control of yourself so that you can then go out and be in control of your day. However, we also talk about not becoming dependent on that
Right.
routine in order for you to feel good or in order for you to have a good day, because there are times where that routine is going to need to pivot or get shifted, or you're going to have to throw the whole thing out the window. And some of my clients have experienced that, and as a result, they're like, it was such a shitty day, and it's because I didn't get to do my reading first thing, or I didn't get to work out first thing. And that's where we have to, like you said, continue to do that work, because yes, we can have these tools that supplement, that help to make things a little bit easier, but we have to understand that those tools aren't the end all be all. You are.
Right.
You are.
Well, and that's what in the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, that's what Stephen Covey says, right? He says way too many people focus on the external for
Yeah.
their fixes and their whatevers, when reality, you got to start inside first. And once you have got a solid foundation there, then it starts manifesting externally.
Well, and I don't know exactly, I don't want to speculate because I am not a man, so you can chime in here. But I know for
Okay.
females, because I feel this is a really good topic to talk about, and because that is what we're getting at, truly, like the external, right? The placing our faith and uh, attaching to external things to help us navigate life versus putting that faith and trust in ourselves
Right.
in being able to show up and navigate our life. And so I want to talk about some other examples. And another way that people do this, and in my case, that my female clients do this, is they outsource their confidence, they outsource their belief in themselves to other people. Um, like they look to others to reflect back to them how they should feel about themselves.
Yep.
So, like, if I am relying on a significant other, for example, if I'm relying on a significant other to let me know that I'm beautiful, to let me know that I'm like a really good coach, for example. Like if I'm reliant upon you giving me that feedback in order for me to feel that way about myself. I mean, yeah, that feels great, but what happens when something happens to you,
Right.
right? Or if you're in a relationship that isn't as serious or committed, like what happens when that person walks out of your life, or that friend that you've relied upon to feel confident in you, like you have something happens and you that friendship dissolves, then everything that you relied on that person for, as far as how you feel about yourself, goes with them.
Right.
It goes with them. Or a job. A lot of people gain their confidence from what they do,
Right.
right? And I've had some clients who that was so much the case. And then they lost their job. And when they lost their job, their their self-confidence took a huge hit
Right.
because that was part of their identity, and that's where they gathered a lot of their self-belief and self-confidence, and now they were no longer in that role at that job. So it's like, how do I feel good about myself because the job's gone?
Right. Well, and just for all the astracals out there, like when it comes to the job loss thing, for example, obviously there's going to be impact, right?
For
So like
sure.
when Foot Locker let me go after 28 years of service with just a phone call, like, hey, we don't really need you anymore.
We know
Carry
you're in
on
the
about your
parking lot, but
business.
don't bother coming in.
Right. Um, obviously, like I was like, whoa, shit. What now? Right. But because we've been on this journey of working on ourselves and growing as people, like it didn't completely upset my world.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people, it can, because again, I did that for 28 years. Yeah, that was a huge part of my identity. Right. I'm, I'm this guy at Foot Locker and this is what that means. But because I've been working on myself and continue to be a work in progress, like that wasn't as globally impactful as it could have been.
Right. You knew who you were outside of that career.
Right. Well, and I think that's the other thing that doing the internal work helps with, right? Because then, at least for me, part of this has been, the definition of roles, right? Like, what roles do I play? And how can I best show up in each of those roles? Right. And I think sometimes when there's more of an external focus for your feelings and your thoughts and whatnot, it can become, it ends up getting shrunk down to one role, right? Like, oh, I'm a husband. That's
Right. That's
that's
what
where it
defines me.
ends. Right. That's all and everything, right? And then,
Do you
you're
think
not doing
men, do you think this, because I want to flip, I know, I think we do a pretty good job of talking about both sides. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, didn't you? Didn't I?
no,
Okay.
go on.
I think we did a pretty good job talking about both male and female sides of things, but sometimes we might tend to lean toward the female side. Do you believe men uh deal with this just as much as women? Because for women, a lot of times, like it, once they become a mom, those women who choose to become a mom or are able to become a mom, um, that's one of the things that clients ultimately come to me with is they're like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like I've just taken on this role of mom. Like I'm mom. That's
Right.
that's that's my identity. Like that's my entire identity. And when they start waking up to that, it's like, no, there used to be someone else inside of me, and then all of a sudden I just became mom, and it doesn't feel good. Like I've got to have
Right.
that separate. So do you feel like that is something that men struggle with, like that?
So what I've
Or what
come
does
to
it look like?
realize is that everybody has the same sort of struggles, regardless of being male or female. It's just the demographics are vocal in different areas as far as expressing those struggles and whatnot, right? I think that, yeah, of course, like there's a you hear it all the time, right? Like we're in our we're in our parent era and like everything goes to the kids and we don't, blah, 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 all the things, right? Which, great. You and I are in our parent era, but we're also intentional about carving out time for ourselves, for carving out time for each other, for filling these other roles and not allowing or choosing to have the parent one be the sole definition of who we are. Our one of our family priorities values is family. And so we put that in front of a lot of other things, but at the same time, it's not the only thing.
Well, yeah, and it's this is moving into several different topics, which is awesome. Like it's defining what that actually means instead of like lumping it all together. Because I think for a lot of people, if you just said like family is one of our most important values,
Right.
many people might automatically define that as like, oh, like family first and everybody together, and but it's like defining for you, well, what does that mean that family
Right.
is an important value? And like for us, family being a one of our top values, that doesn't mean that the whole unit comes before our relationship as husband and wife or our relationship as an individual with ourself. That because family is a important value of ours, here's what that looks like
Right.
together and on our own. So I think it's important to define what that means and not just take like what kind of society throws out there as a general description, because that doesn't it's not a one size fits all. And I will also say that we're not perfect in the things. um
Correct.
we work at these things, we have great awareness of the things, and we work at these things, and things look different in different seasons. So right now with our family's schedule, the different things that each of us as individuals have going on, the things that we have going on collectively as a family, like when you mentioned that we intentionally carve out time to spend together and be together with us and work on our relationship, that looks a little different than it did a couple years
Correct.
ago when our schedule was different. So
Right.
I think it's finding a way to have these structures, these principles, philosophy, standards that are core to you in your life, but then understanding that they're bendable.
Right.
They're bendable, and if you're growing, then they will grow with you. But when we create these like rigid things, which is where I think it gets a lot of people in trouble, and this does tie back into the things that we're saying. When you create these rigid rules of like, well, hey, in order for me to like be sane today, I have to have on my calm hoodie. That's very rigid.
Right.
Whereas I can say, hey, like I currently have a hard time with feeling anxious in certain situations. I got this little toolkit over here of things that I've collected that can help me in a multitude of scenarios. And I also have some things internally that I can do, right? So it's collecting these different things in your toolkit that, depending on what season you're in, what situation you're in, you've got a lot of different things to choose from, not just externally, but also internally. But
Right.
it's movable, it bends, but there's these underlying foundations that we have here
Well, and
as well.
it's appropriate that you use the word toolkit because that's what I was thinking, right? Because you
Oh, look at
need,
us.
yeah, you need a toolkit that is varied, right? Because it's like that old saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Mm.
And so, you know, it may be that at work, what helps me be successful is just putting my head down and pushing through everything and motoring through it and not caring and just getting it done, right? Well, guess what? That's not going to be real conducive for your marriage.
Mhm.
But if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so you got to be self-aware enough to realize what's currently in your toolkit and then be, oh, what's the word? Vulnerable, I suppose, enough to go exploring and finding other tools that can go in that toolkit because to your point, life is not rigid. Life itself is very malleable and flexible. And so you need a variety of tools and whatnot to help you be productive and successful in all these different situations. And it's not always going to work, right? But
Well, it's like just again to give as many examples as we can. It's like I had a call with a friend of mine this week who uh, is way better than I am with systems, life systems, business systems, etc. And that's something that I have learned about myself that I need to become better at. And I need to seek out someone who functions the way I'm wanting to function and get assistance. And so I was on a call with her and we were talking about this. And that was one of the things that we discussed because I shared with her that part of what I have struggled with over time in regard to scheduling and the organization of my time and what I'm doing with it is I would often create a plan
sure.
and then a couple of things would happen. Either one, just by having the plan, I was like, "Ooh, I don't like this." Right? It's like containing me and
Right.
I don't want to be contained by these rules. So
Right.
I recognize that I like it's not working the way I'm doing things and I need a plan, but then I implement a plan and I'm like, "Ooh, I don't like this. It's restricting." The other thing is that if it didn't go as I had it laid out, I was unable to pivot. I was unable to like move with it because all I had at
Right.
those times when I've attempted it was like, okay, like I scheduled these things out and here I am. I'm in this block of time and then oh shit, I'm half hour over. Now what? And it like blew up in my face. But I wasn't pursuing more learning for myself as far as like, okay, well, what happens? Like what happens when that plan that I had doesn't quite fit the scenario for the day.
Right.
And so this happens in so many different ways in our life. And so at the end of the day, I think that it is us needing to recognize a few things. One being nothing, you, your plans, a tool is ever going to be 100% perfect for every single moment of your life,
Right.
ever. And when you can embrace that, that takes a lot of pressure off because you're like, oh, like when a little bobble happens, you're like, oh, well, I knew that at some point, like this wasn't going to work the way it
Right.
might have worked previously. And it is understanding that you need a collection of things to be able to draw on and utilize, whether that's like literal tools as far as strategies, journals, whatever, hoodies in your toolkit, as well as people, right? Like people are tools for us as well. Who could
Sure.
I connect with that could help me with this particular situation? And that's what we need to realize. And then just understanding, like we said, that it's always going to come back to you. It's always going to come back to you. And this is like a lifetime game, like the game of life. It's called the game of life for a reason because like there's no end to it.
Right. It's an
It's like
infinite game.
Monopoly. It goes on forever. But so many times, like I said, we're looking to like solve a problem forever. We're looking to, sometimes like my clients are like, when, I've done so much work and I've made so much progress. Why is this thought coming up right now?
Right.
And it's like, well, because you somehow have told yourself that the work that you've done and the tools that you've used are going to completely eliminate that thing. And really, it might just lessen it.
Right. Yeah, I mean Simon Sinek, he describes it as finite versus infinite games, right? Like tic-tac-toe is a finite game
Right.
because there's a very clear end to that game. Whereas to your point, Monopoly, Life, those are infinite games because the object is not to reach some sort of arbitrary finish line, but is instead to play the game as long as possible.
Right. And that should be our goal in life.
Right.
Truly. To play the game as long as possible. And everybody listening, like what would I, I'll be honest, like it's not like I think about that question every single day. But what if you did? Like, what if you really adopted the idea that the sole purpose here was for you to be able to play the game of life for as long as possible? Like, what would that mean? But this is a really good download I'm having right here.
Oh, you're
Because like,
welcome.
because you think about it, and if you think about it in the video game sense, like, what do you need? Well, you got to have a bunch of tools. You have to have strong health. Like I'm, thinking about when Dax plays his Fortnite, right? Like he's wanting to buy like extra tools and have extra things, and he's got to do the things that gets him the coins, or I don't know all the lingo for Fortnite. But like he's got to have the ability to purchase all of those tools or to
Right.
acquire the skills to acquire all of those tools. He's got to have good health, right? If his health goes down, he's got to be able to build it back up. He's got to have strategy going on up here in order to get to where he wants to go or conquer the things people he needs to conquer. And that really is a thing. Like it's the game of life. And how
Right.
are you preparing yourself each and every day to play that game to the best of your ability so that you are like last man standing. That
Right.
should
To the
be the
best of your
goal.
ability for as long as possible.
Exactly. Exactly.
Boom. That might have just put the most sexiest and most attractive bow on this episode ever.
I mean, well, I do have a gift.
It's got to be the hoodie, bro.
Well, luckily, I have spent years working on my self-belief and self-confidence, so you can make that little comment, and I know I would be just fine without this hoodie. Thank you very much.
I'll hear about this after the episode, gang.
Anyways, comment. Tell us your top takeaway, the thing that we shared today that spoke to you. Because I know we can't be the only ones with
Right.
these
We're
opinions,
100% not the only
thoughts, whatever.
ones.
Also, we love to collect new perspectives.
Right.
So if you've got something to add to the conversation,
Expand our toolkit, man.
please, because we are playing the game of life and we'll take all the help we can get.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next
Love
week.
y'all. Come back next week.